Yo, what's up guys, Griffin GFX here. Today I'm going to be teaching you how I go from a rough sketch to a final professional looking Y2K logo for either myself or for a client project. Right now you're watching the sketching process of me experimenting, trying to create something that looks cool. I'll then show you how I pull it into Adobe and in Kittl later on in the video to then finalize the logo bit by bit, teaching you how I do every little step. I typically do a bunch of different sketches when I'm doing the client project that they can then choose from. They'll then tell me which one I should spend time perfecting and I'll go from there. I'm going to start off with this A1. So here I have a sheet of paper filled with sketches, and here's a quick flash of what they might look like once digitalized. I'm going to keep this tutorial simple as possible so you can all follow along. You don't need to be an amazing sketcher and you don't need to have lots of knowledge inside of Adobe or Kittl to understand how to do this. Y2K logos are becoming more and more popular, used in the music scene, fashion scene, and all over social medias. From sketch to a logo. Let's go. Alright, so once I've done my sketch, I'll either leave it as a pencil or I'll use an ink pen, something like this, a fine ink pen, just to make the lines a little bit more definitive. But I'll often just leave it as a sketch, keep it rough, keep it easy for yourself. Get it into Photoshop. I usually WhatsApp it to myself and then just drag it straight in. And then I tool bucket the background so I have one big, nice, easy to see canvas. Then what I would do is make your canvas a lot bigger. Bring everything up in size. So I'm selecting all my layers, holding Alt, I can drag everything up so it's way bigger, because you might as well make the logo nice and big from the get-go so you don't have any problems down the line. Now I'm going to merge these layers together, filter, liquify. This will allow me to make some changes to the logo to fix the shape a little bit, because it's all a little bit off, because obviously it was just a rough sketch. So I drag it down here, drag it up there slightly. Maybe bring out the little flick there slightly. Lift that up again. More of a flat base to the A. The rest of it is pretty much good to go. So with Y2K logos, it's usually just going to be a cross between some typography, some lettering, and symbols. You can check out my symbol packs. It's on my website, griffingfx.com. There's a free and a deluxe version. If you want the deluxe one, you'll get a bunch more high quality assets, but there's definitely some sick free ones as well if you're kind of new to Y2K and you just want some to play with. So yeah, links in the description to that, of course. I'm actually going to liquefy again because I just noticed that the top of this A here isn't flat, so I might as well fix that before we jump into the pen tool. Alright, now what I do is with the adjustments and curves tool, I can bring the darks down and the lights up a little bit. Merge that together and lower the opacity of everything just so I can see it kind of in the background, ready for me to start working on the layer above. So Control-Shift-N, make yourself a new layer. I'm going to be using the pen tool and I'm just going to begin creating the elements and the shapes to render out this logo. So step one is using the pen tool. If you press Control and R, you'll get your rulers up on Illustrator or Photoshop, and then you can drag and you can create some rulers. Because you see here, I still haven't got that perfect. So without this line, I'd end up with a slightly messy logo. So I'm going to put two rulers on my canvas like that, just so I can keep it, consistent. And now I'm going to start creating. The pen tool is one of the most useful tools if you're creating logos in Adobe. There ain't that much to learn other than kind of mastering the bends. Once you've done one bend, the next point that you make is going to want to automatically bend. And you just want to kind of learn how that fluidity works. If you struggle with that, you don't need to worry. You can make a mistake and then go back, and holding Alt and left click, you can change it afterwards to make it perfect. I'm going to start off by doing the base of the A like that. Because I haven't done any curve there, it's going to let me just freely create this next angle. I'm now aligning this part of the pen tool with the direction of the A. You might be tempted there to go straight off into this bit, but we'll do that on separate layers. Because if I decided to do that, and then say eventually come back here and do that, now this line here and this line here are not necessarily going to be perfectly aligned. It's just guesswork. So instead, I would go straight from here to there. And then yeah, you can fill in the blanks afterwards on another layer. I recommend when making a logo that's a little bit complex, you do it on separate layers just to save yourself a headache. Now here I'm going to bring another ruler down to decide where the curves end. So I think we should have it about there. So I've aligned it with this one. So I'm going to pull that, correct that. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Don't be afraid to stray away from your sketch slightly. Remember, that was to inspire you, but when it comes to actually creating the logo shapes, you want to do it professionally instead of trying to just stick exactly to the logo. Once you have your selection made, you don't need to connect it with the final point. You know, if it's close enough, then when you right click and make a selection, it will just finish it for you. Make sure you're on a new layer, Control-Shift-N. And now we can fill this object using the paint bucket tool. I press G to select that. It might be different on your computer. Now I'm going to lower the opacity of that so I can still see the sketch through. And I'm going to go onto a new layer. And now I'm going to begin to do the star. So this is actually a little bit of an angle, but I feel like it should be vertical. And then one click all the way up to there, right? This part was difficult to do with a sketch, and I was just kind of imagining the logo. Now I'm here in the Adobe suite, I can actually decide exactly how I want it, and it might be a bit different to how you first sketched it. Being bold like this, making bold decisions, is going to be better than going because then everything's just going to look a bit jaggedy. It's not going to have that iconic logo look to it. And for this style of logo that I'm looking for something a little bit more powerful. So I'm going straight to the top of this star, from this top right corner to the bottom left part of the star. Now I'm going to go right to the top, then to the bottom right of the star, then to the top left of the star, and then from there I'm going to reconnect it with this one, and it's going to be a little bit messy and a bit fiddly, but it will at least create a good marker so I then know how to fix it in just a moment. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to get real close to that, something like that, and then I'm going to bring it back down and click on that. Now this looks like a little bit of a madness. I will agree with you if that was your thought that I just channeled, but it's fine. This is bit by bit how you create a logo, and they fucking work, all right? They just work, all right? So yeah, it looks a little bit mad at the moment, but when I paste that in, I now know exactly what I need to do to fix this. So now this has created the outline shape of the star, and it does look a little bit mad, but it's at least a marker for me to then fill in the blanks. Now you could use a pen tool to do this really accurately, or you could use a brush. I'll show you both ways of doing it. So if you were to use a brush, I'd just select the size and I'd begin to fill in the gray areas like this, just being very careful not to go outside of the star. If you wanted to make really controlled selections, you could continue using the pen tool. Control-Shift-N, new layer, right click with the pen tool, make a selection and fill it in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the sketch, I'm going to bring it back on top, I'm going to max it out. And what I've noticed is that this bit here was a lot thicker on the sketch, and I think we need to do that. I think that's going to look better. So I'm going to select from this point of the star here. I'm going to cut down to about there, and I'm now put a ruler on that to make sure I get it right. Bring it back and make the selection once again. Control-Shift-N and fill it in. That right there was a really quick way of how I would approach a Y2K logo task from a sketch to the final logo. There's a few reasons why it's important to have a rough sketch. It could be a drawing tablet or it could be pencil and paper. I used to use drawing tablets a lot, but I figured for the nature of this video, it'd be cool to show you guys how to do it from scratch with paper, because some of you don't have drawing tablets, and because it's fun. I don't know, I still feel like even after all my time in a drawing tablet, I'm sometimes better with a pencil and paper. But another reason why it's good is because it takes a fair bit longer to do what I've just done and render out the final logo. So when you're doing works for a client or for a project, they may want to see a bunch of different sketches before they're all rendered so that they can tell you which one to spend your time perfecting. So I'd maybe give a client like 10 different sketched ideas, maybe less depending on the budget, or maybe more, and then they will tell me which one they want to see turned into a final piece. Right, now that we've got this, I'm going to do a few stylization effects, show you how you can give it a bit more of that Y2K look. I'm going to select all of the layers. I'm going to group them by pressing Control and G. I'm going to duplicate the group. I'm going to hide the first group so that I've got all the layers separately, but I'm going to merge the one on top. Have this as just one solid object now. I'm going to make a new background layer so the sketch is gone. I'm going to expand this canvas and I'm going to create different variants of this logo with a Y2K aesthetic. Get rid of my rulers. Doink. Hey, doink. Hey, doink. I'm going to duplicate that, bring it down. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with the background color, and I'm just going to add a stroke. Y2K logos are often heavily stroked. With most design work, I would never be this bold with a stroke, but with Y2K logos, I don't know why, but a heavy stroke often just looks sick. You could rasterize this and add to the stroke if you wanted to make some tweaks. For example, you might not want that little bit there. You might want to make it smoother, and you know, select that and fill it with black. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to make the stroke a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to demonstrate the Y2K 3-dimensional effect I was talking about earlier. I'm going to make this layer, oh, there's new colors now. I'm on the new version of Photoshop. I'm going to use Seafoam, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer. Using the arrow keys, I'm going to go up and to the left, duplicate, up and left, duplicate, up and left, duplicate, up and left. What that does is it gives you an easy way of making your logo look kind of 3-dimensional. What I often notice people doing with Y2K logos is once they've done that, they merge it all together and they add a final stroke around the edges that's just a little bit bigger. Something like that. I think that looks pretty cool. For the final effect, I want to see what eye candy can do with the extrusion tool. I'm going to make a whole video on eye candy soon. If you have no idea what this is, stay tuned, hit the notification bell. The extrusion tool will allow you to make your own 3-dimensional object. It will allow you to give it shadows, to choose the depth, and to choose the taper, which means, is it completely flat 3D, or does it have some distance to it? Like, does it fade off into the distance? I sometimes don't know how to use the English language to analyze artwork. I just do it, but you know, I'm doing my best out here, guys, alright? There you go, that gives you an example of how it would look with a little bit more of a cinematic 3-dimensional aesthetic. And yeah, there you go, guys, for this A-star logo. I'm not saying it's an A-star logo, but it's an A-star logo, if you know what I'm saying. And there you have a simple tutorial on how to turn a rough sketch into a final professional logo inside the Adobe suite. I'm now going to do the same thing inside of Kittl, using one of my sketches as inspiration to make a professional Y2K logo. Let's go. So in Kittl, I'm going to try and do the S logo with the star in the middle. I'll begin this project using the headline tool and typing out capital S. I'm actually going to do a capital and a lowercase s just in case it looks better with one of the fonts that we pick. Now I'm going to go through the fonts and find one that I think will work for this logo. This one's actually quite close. If it could have been longer or wider, I should say, that would have worked. So I'm going to need a bold S, and it needs to preferably be quite wide so that we can fit a star in the middle. Perhaps let's try this one. So we got the S. We now need a symbol. So we're going to go over to the element section, which is right here. I'm going to type in star. We need one like this. And that right there is the logo. I'm going to keep trying to improve it, trying different fonts and different stars until I get one that I'm really happy with. So I'm using the border width of the star to create an outline on the star. Now by moving the layer down, I'm now able to connect the S and the star whilst leaving the stroke overlaying the other parts of the S, which I think is pretty cool. Using the spacing tool, you could then turn a letter like this into a way wider version of the same letter. And this one will give us a little bit of space for the star. So let's go and grab an element, search for star again, and see which one we want to use. Maybe we use a classic star. That, in my opinion, actually looks pretty sick. So that right there is how I'd approach the exact same task, but instead of in Adobe, inside of Kittl, using their fonts and their symbols to create some nice Y2K logos. In the past, I've made an entire video using Kittl to make Y2K logos inspired by Japan. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave the link down in the description so you can learn more about how to use Kittl in a more in-depth tutorial. And my most recent video is covering Kittl's artificial intelligence, which for graphic designers, I think is the #1 on the internet. I'm not just saying that. They even have an AI for logo design which can manage text, and it's the first AI that I've seen that can actually do text without butchering it, because normally it just glitches the text out. And the sick thing about working in Kittl, especially for beginner designers, is that every asset, symbol, font within Kittl is all commercially free to use, meaning you can scale up your business without worrying about copyright problems. All of the services that I've used in this video will be put down in the description so you can find everything easily. Thank you so much for watching the video. If this helped you or inspired you, make sure you smackarino that like button, lick the subscribe button, and headbutt the notification bell so you'll be notified when I drop my next banger. Till the next time, guys, peace.